everybody? Welcome back to another unscripted topic video. When I first started these series, I just wanted to make a really quick video about something that was happening really big in Stardom. And since then, there really hasn't been too big of a news that had like a lot of like controversy or information from two different sides since then. So I really don't feel the need to do them. And then something happened, and it made me realize that this series is mostly going to be for controversy because it's looking at two or more sides and then just giving as much of an unbiased opinion as I can and then giving my opinion about it. So, as you all know, Hazuki, if you see here, Hazuki announced her retirement, that she was going to retire on the December 24th show, which already happened. Now, this was announced on November 24th. That's not really the controversy here, other than how it kind of came out of nowhere. Also, the other people in my house are awake right now, and so I left my fan on. I don't know how that's going to affect the sound. We'll see. I'll either just leave the fan sound in, or I'll do the noise reduction and see which one sounds better. Alright. So, Hazuki retired. She's retired right now, technically. And all was good. People were wondering why, though. I mean, why did she just suddenly retire? Like, it came out of nowhere. Well, according to Dave Meltzer, who isn't very accurate when it comes to Joshi Matters, but everyone seems to be taking this one as gospel for some reason. Hazuki, also known at times as Hazuki with HZK, I guess he spelled it wrong in the thing, whatever, announced blah 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 that she will retire facing Natsuko. Blah 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 blah. According to those in the company, she made the decision earlier in the year that she wanted to live a normal life. She said that wrestling in April in Madison Square Garden fulfilled her dreams and that played a part in her decision. She is healthy and has no issues with the company. She wanted wrestling to be a phase in her life, and she is happy with what she did and is ready to move on. Now, that sounds all good, and everyone seems to be taking this one as gospel. Like, you'll see later on why I keep saying that. But it gives an explanation. She's done with wrestling. She wants to do other stuff. She said she's moving on, and that's all good. That's all good. If that's what she wants to do, that's what she wants to do. Well, if some of you remember, when Julia started coming in, her first match was against Hazuki, and Hazuki made this tweet, and this is Google Translate garbage, of course, but she's basically saying that she's going to lose the match and that Stardom wants Stardom wants Hazuki to be Julia's stepping stone. I covered this in another video a little bit, so I'm not going to go too much into it. It's just the first sign of things that maybe things aren't as clean cut as they appeared to be. Maybe Hazuki isn't very happy with how things are going. So that leads us to December 19th, getting closer to her retirement. She just happens to run into Stardom enemy number 1, Yoshiko, at her hair place, where they took a picture together. Now, if some of you don't know, Yoshiko and Hazuki, at least on screen, used to be pretty close. Hazuki was kind of her, like, underling. And from my understanding, they're probably pretty good friends still, even though after everything that happened. A lot of people saw this and they were like, this is kind of interesting. I mean, years go by and she never ran into Yoshiko before, but then right as her retirement's happening and apparently things are starting to fall through the cracks, all of a sudden she runs into Yoshiko again. Things are getting a little bit muddy here, but nothing too crazy. Then Stardom announced that Hazuki was going to have a retirement photo book, and Hazuki tweeted some things that she wasn't really happy with it. The face of the cover, there was a cooler one. Stardom is mishandled by Hazuki until the very end. Now, this is kind of the first instance that maybe Hazuki has a problem with Stardom, other than the Julia one. And this was 4 days before her retirement. This is kind of implying that she thinks that Stardom never handled her correctly throughout her career. Which leads us to her retirement. Her retirement happened, and I don't know who these people are. As far as I could tell through like researching and whatnot, it looks like it's just a bar that holds events for like wrestling and stuff like that. I'm not sure why these people's tweet is being taken as gospel, whereas other things aren't. But according to this Twitter account, Hazuki apparently said somewhere at some time, because it's not even a link to like a video of Hazuki saying it or even a tweet by Hazuki. This is just them saying that Hazuki said this. So it's kind of odd in my opinion, but Hazuki, I didn't think I would retire like this. I don't think there should be any players who retire like this in the future. I hate Stardom. Now, this is pretty clear cut on intention. I know this is Google Translate garbage, and there could be some nuances in here that we're missing. Especially since apparently everyone else in Stardom is like not reacting to this at all. I mean, she was at the awards ceremony like nothing was going on. Kadani himself is apparently even like tweeting out things saying like good job Hazuki and whatnot, and that happened all after this. So I don't know, maybe this was said during her retirement speech or something. That we'll have to see. But this is kind of making it seem like Hazuki is definitely leaving on bad terms. Now, this tweet right here has spawned a lot of, what's it called, conspiracies. Everything from they're forcing her to retire because her and Kagetsu are in a secret relationship for some, I don't know. And then other things like Hazuki's family got into a scandal that we don't know about yet, I guess, and they're trying to get rid of her before it comes out. There's so many stupid things going on right now, and the reason why I said so much that people are taking this one as gospel is that as things start coming out, everyone's still saying that like Hazuki said this, but as far as I know, Hazuki never said anything about this. It was just Dave and the English Stardom account. So they're acting like this is some kind of huge conspiracy that Hazuki was acting all fine up until now, and then now as she was retiring, she's laying out the dirt. But she, as far as I know, she never acted like everything was okay. And later you'll see there's another report from Dave Meltzer that people are being super suspicious of, but they kind of take that one as truth. So it's clear that Hazuki has some kind of problem with Stardom in some way, and because it's a Joshi company, we'll never know what's going on ever. I mean, to this day, we still don't even know the details between Act and Yoshiko. And this is way less crazy than that. So this is never going to have a fine resolution. And then we move on to here. Looks like someone named Miguel F translated Kagetsu's blog post. If you don't know, Kagetsu's blog posts are very informative and interesting because she's always talking about Stardom in some way. Now, the reason why Kagetsu comes into this is because Kagetsu just announced that she's retiring as well. And this has just sparked a whole bunch of like, oh, Stardom's making them retire, blah, 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 blah. So, according to this, Stardom, or Kagetsu, I am retiring in February, blah, 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 blah. I'll be leaving Stardom. And then she's going to put on her own produced show as a retirement. It seems like there are a lot of people who are shocked at the sudden announcement, but is there such a thing as a retirement announcement that isn't sudden? As I announced at the press conference, I've been thinking about retiring long before this, so it wasn't a sudden decision. Now, this is interesting, because if you take both accounts, Hazuki's apparently been thinking about retiring for a long time, about a year, and Kagetsu's been thinking about retiring for a long time. It kind of seems like they started thinking about retiring at around the same time, and what could have caused that, you'll see later, according to one side anyway. When I heard that Stardom would be restructuring, my intuition told me that this was the time to do it. Of course, I heard about the restructuring in advance, so this isn't a recent development. At the time I joined Stardom, I toted these goals: to raise the standards of the promotion by changing our wrestlers' way of thinking, to recapture the red belt, and to improve the units. These three things, I didn't necessarily do them. I think that we all built this thing together. For me personally, I feel that I fulfilled my goals. I also thought that I wanted Iwatani, not me, to build a new Stardom with the people under her. That's my entire reasoning. I was able to make my announcement with 100% conviction because there's something I want to do next. And because after my final battle of the year with Iwatani, I once again felt sure that under the current Mayu Iwatani, Stardom will be okay. Let me say one thing. My retirement has absolutely nothing to do with Hazuki's retirement, because I decided to retire before she did. Now, this has some truth in it, or I'm not saying she's lying, but I'm saying that there's some other instances that back her up. She was going to retire way back in the day, and Io kind of brought her back. So this does make sense. Hazuki had a heavy burden placed on her, and she may have retired due to having more difficult times than pleasant ones. However, I don't want her to think that everything is bad. If the current me wasn't in Stardom, I wouldn't be the best and worst wrestler. If not for Stardom, I wouldn't be Prime Minister, I wouldn't be leader of Odotai, and I wouldn't have met Azumi. Well, a lot of things happened. There were hard times and there were fun times too. I spent around 8 years after my debut as a bit player, and all of a sudden for 3 years I was surrounded by so many junior wrestlers. I'm the one who grew the most, so seriously, I want Stardom and everyone at Stardom to be thankful to me. The reason I'm not retiring with Stardom is that I wanted to show my gratitude to my old haunts that allowed me to debut 11 years and 4 months ago, and to many promotions and senior and junior wrestlers. Though I don't know what shape that will take, to be able to do that, the only choice was to go freelance. However, this is just what I want to do, and not necessarily a pledge. That's everything about my leaving Stardom and retiring. What I'm saying is the only truth. Odotai's Kagetsu will finish with Stardom. So basically, she's saying she wants to leave Stardom and she wants to do her own show to kind of pay respects to all the people who helped her up until this point. That's perfectly fine. It makes perfect sense. And she definitely did it in a way that made it sound like Hazuki's leaving had something to do with having a heavy burden placed on her, and she may have retired due to having more difficult times than pleasant ones. This is making it seem like something was going on backstage that Hazuki, and in relation probably Kagetsu, were getting some kind of negative feedback or some kind of bad situations that were causing them to not want to be there anymore. So if you look at one side, Hazuki and Kagetsu's, they're the ones in the right. Stardom's, or not as much Kagetsu. Kagetsu seems to be doing it professionally, but Hazuki, she's making it seem like Stardom is, these bad guys who are taking advantage of her and mishandling her, and she hates them and she wants out. Well, Stardom in a way has responded. Now, no one really knows who fed Meltzer this information, but as we all know, Meltzer just works on information he is given. So someone had to have given him this, because no one really thinks that Meltzer makes things up. He just kind of takes what people say and reports it, and it's not always the truth, but that is what he's being told. So right here, this is kind of, I'm going to say Stardom's way, because it's probably either Sunny or Fumi who gave Meltzer this information. But according to them, Kagetsu, who held the World of Stardom title in the earlier part of the year, announced her retirement, blah, 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 blah. This came after losing a power struggle and also ties into the retirement of Hazuki. Kagetsu, born Yukari Ishino, quit high school, okay, blah, 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 blah. Come on. Blah, blah. All right. Kagetsu was in charge. I'm right here for those of you who don't know. Kagetsu was in charge of training all of the women, and Hazuki was her best student, and then became her most trusted ally. So this is painting a picture that Kagetsu was head trainer, and Hazuki kind of became teacher's pet in a way. She was her best friend, and became, someone very trusted by Kagetsu. In a sense, Hazuki, because of that, also had a significant locker room power. She had the person running everything as her main ally, so of course she would have some kind of power over the others. Kagetsu's management style was compared to that of Bill Watts, and that doesn't fly in today's world. If for those of you who don't know, I don't know all of the details, but I do know some things. Bill Watts was the WWE's performance center trainer before the current one, and apparently he was like super abusive, like really, really abusive to everyone, and that's why he's not the trainer anymore. So just using the word Bill Watts, it's implying that Kagetsu was pretty abusive. Now, I'm trying to stay impartial right here. I'll tell my opinions at the end, but that's what he's implying with these words. She was finding people when they were late and taking away their personal time. While that is very vague, it also seems kind of messed up. Because if you apply that to any other job, if just some random you were just talking to some random person, they were like, yeah, so I was like 5 minutes late, and so they took away my personal time. That sounds horrible. Like, it wouldn't fly in any other job. Now, what that means, though, could be anything. It could mean you were 5 minutes late, you have to stay 5 minutes late, and to a lot of people that would be okay. And I understand that as well. That's a fair compromise. But this is a job. It's not like an army, like it is a job. And taking away people's personal time as punishment and fining people, that's kind of like wrestlers court stuff from the WWE, which pretty much everyone thinks is just a way of bullying. So if you think the wrestlers court was a bad thing and was just a way for the higher ups to bully the lower wrestlers, then this is what it's sounding like. It's sounding like this. So management stepped in once and told her not to do that, but she continued to do the same thing. Most of the women came to management to protest Kagetsu being in charge. Now, it says most of the women, and people are using that as a way to argue that this is false, because they're saying, well, Azumi seemed fine with Hazuki, blah, blah, blah. It says most, not all, okay? I'm not saying this is true, but it's saying most. It's not saying all of the wrestlers came in. And there are some things that kind of back that up, too. I mean, if you look at Hazuki's retirement gauntlet, she only wrestled Odo Tai, who all seemed to be in favor of Kagetsu. And then she wrestled the rookies, who probably weren't the people who were complaining to management, because especially in the Japanese hierarchy structure, they really wouldn't get a say. If I had to guess, it was probably the higher ups like Momo. It might even have been Mayu, because she probably doesn't like Kagetsu treating people like that or whatever. We don't know who it is, and we don't even know if this is true. But just going under the assumption that this is true, like I go on the assumption that what they said was true, it doesn't mean everyone didn't like them. It just means that most didn't like them. A vote was held, and Kagetsu was voted out as the head trainer and locker room boss. Now, this is important because forever we were all under the assumption that she was still the head trainer. And that's why when Milano came in, people were wondering what was going to happen to Kagetsu. And I even made a video talking about how much I think Kagetsu is good for Stardom. So, there really weren't any signs of this to outsiders. Now, that doesn't mean it's not happening. I mean, look at how many domestic, what's it called? where one partner beats up the other partner. It's like a lot of people don't know about it because it's happening behind closed doors. It's not happening in our eyes. So, Yeah, so she was kicked out. She was no longer the locker room leader. But it doesn't say when. But this next sentence here will maybe put some light on that. With her out of power, both Kagetsu and Hazuki lost interest in the company. Hazuki decided to retire, basically feeling that wrestling... not that part yet, but both Kagetsu and Hazuki lost interest in the company. Now, if we're going by the other Meltzer quote, which people are taking it as truth for some reason, but not this one. Everyone's super skeptical about this one. They're saying, according to Hazuki, she made the decision earlier in the year, and that Kagetsu said, I can't find the exact words, but you remember. She said that she was thinking about retiring for a while as well. She was even thinking about retiring before Hazuki thought about retiring. Now, if you go by what they said, most likely, Kagetsu got kicked out as head trainer earlier in the year, around the same time that Hazuki started thinking about retiring. And if you're going by this as truth, that adds up. They got kicked out of Power, and all of a sudden they don't want to wrestle for Stardom anymore. It makes a lot of sense, but I don't think either side is telling the full truth. That's just kind of how Japan is. Yeah, so she got kicked out. With her out of Power, both Kagetsu and Hazuki decided to retire, basically feeling that wrestling in Madison Square Garden in April was a goal, and she had achieved that. But that also explains Kagetsu constantly bad-mouthing the new owner since the Bushiroad purchase was announced, which led to her announcing her retirement, putting a positive spin on it by saying Stardom is in good hands with Mayu Iwatani in charge. That's interesting because I don't remember Kagetsu saying anything bad about Bushiroad. Now, if we're going under the assumption that this was being fed to Meltzer by someone in Stardom, this could mean that Kagetsu was bad-mouthing them in ways that we don't know about. Like maybe in practices, maybe in her blogs that didn't get translated for us. You know, like there are many instances that she could have been bad-mouthing Bushiroad that we might not have heard about. I mean, we only see a glimpse of their lives, like very small glimpse, almost none of it. We just see what they want us to see. So it makes sense that she could have been bad-mouthing Bushiroad, but we didn't know about it. Now, when you put all of this together, it's really hard to know who to believe because both sides are kind of making themselves out to be the ones in the right. Hazuki makes it seem like she's being mistreated and mishandled and she just wants out. Kagetsu makes it seem like she's just been thinking about retiring. It has nothing to do with Hazuki. She just thought about it, and when she heard about the restructuring by Bushiroad, she's like, yeah, you know what? It's probably time. But the other side is saying they were in charge, they were abusing their power, and they got kicked out of their position, and ever since then they just didn't want to be around anymore. This is going from here on out. It's going to be my opinions. I'm not going to try to be taking both sides. I'm just going to be saying what I think's the truth. Does Hazuki feel like she's being mishandled? I believe that's what she feels like. I believe that is what she feels like, and that is one of the major things she's might have been the catalyst for her wanting to retire. Do I think Kagetsu does think that Stardom will be good under Iwatani? Yes, I think that as well. I do think that a good part of her is someone who cares about the people at Stardom. Do I think this report right here is the truth? For the most part, I do. I think referring to her as Bill Watts was a little overboard. It was kind of, I seriously doubt she's that abusive, because there are people who say good things about her training style. Just a little while ago, someone uploaded it was on the Joshi, what's it called? Joshi Pod or something like that. It's a podcast about Joshi. I'm trying to find it. Joshi Pod. I guess he interviewed Alex Gracia, and she said that she really liked Kagetsu's training style, and that she was tough, but she was supportive and caring. And that could be true. Just because one person has a really good experience, though, it doesn't mean that that's how she's treating everyone. Remember, Alex Gracia is an outsider, a foreigner, who Stardom and Rossi probably wants to have a good time while she's there. They probably don't want her to have a bad time. And as you guys know, anybody who is in a form of power and is abusive with it, they're not dumb. They know when to be abusive and when not to be abusive. They know how to keep getting away with it. For the most part, it's a pattern. Like, if you were in Kagetsu's position and she was abusive, and you were like this abusive trainer, would you be and act that way towards someone who could potentially like talk about it once they're gone? Because she has no loyalty or anything to Stardom or Kagetsu. She doesn't live in Japan, where you're supposed to keep your mouth shut about this stuff. She lives somewhere else where she could talk about it. I mean, she comes from the same country, as far as I know. I think Alex Gracia is American, USA. I could be wrong, but she comes from the same thing as CM Punk. The dude who's known for talking crap about his promotion and blah, 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 blah. I don't think that Alex Gracia's interview is enough to prove this wrong. I think that there are kernels of truth in this statement here that makes a lot of sense. Like the whole Kagetsu being voted out and them now wanting to leave. Kagetsu and Hazuki are no longer in power. They have no interest. They feel like they're being mishandled, and now they want out. But just because I feel like she could have been abusive, it doesn't mean I think she's a bad person. A lot of times, or I don't want to say a lot of times, and I have no knowledge in psychology and blah, 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 blah. This is just what I feel for the most part. Abuse, in some instances, especially in this case, in my opinion, comes from a place of caring. Now, I'm not saying if someone's abusing you, they care about you. No. I'm talking about in this case, as like a trainer, you always hear about football coaches or whatnot, they're being abusive sometimes and pushing people too hard. I feel like that type of abuse, and this isn't every instance, but for the most part, that type of abuse, I believe, comes from a place of wanting them to improve. And you don't want someone to improve unless you care about them in some way. But it just makes sense that Kagetsu would fall into that old style of management, the old Joshi style of management. She's been around for 10 years. She probably grew up in that type of, that type of management. But these girls, almost everyone in Stardom right now, almost everyone, didn't grow up in Stardom in the time when it was toxic. Yoshiko left in 2015. And most of the wrestlers were either like very, very rookie or debuted shortly after this whole stuff happened. You know, Arisa wasn't there. Saki wasn't there. Momo had just started. Jungle had just started. Hiromi, I think, debuted after Yoshiko left. It's Hazuki, I think. Yeah, Hazuki was there. Kagetsu wasn't there. Who else is there? Hano, I don't think, was there. She hadn't even started wrestling yet. Natsuko wasn't there either. Who else is... Starlight Kid, I think, was there. I'm not saying at the event, like at the incident, but I think she was in the promotion. So a lot of them were either like rookies who wouldn't have been involved in the backstage politics, or they just weren't there at all. I mean, the only people who weren't rookies, but were there during the toxic period of Stardom are Mayu and Azumi. And I would bet that Mayu is probably the forerunner of the person, of the group who went to management about this. As someone who lived through all that crap before, she probably didn't want it to happen again. Because the incident, the main theory is that ACT didn't respect the traditional way of Joshi doing things, like the hierarchy system. She didn't respect that. She didn't like that. Now, we don't know what that means. We don't know if she was just being disrespectful to her elders or the people above her, or if that meant she wanted everyone to kind of be on the same playing field backstage. All we know is that, according to that one documentary, that she wasn't respecting that system, and that's why Yoshiko did what she did. And as Mayu, having went through that, probably didn't want it to happen again. So there are some parts of this that I can really believe. I could believe that Kagetsu was abusive without... Maybe she didn't even know it. Like, in her eyes, you do something bad, you get punished. But I think the way she was going about it might have been too much for a lot of the wrestlers, and that's why she got kicked out. And of course, you get kicked out of your main position, you don't have the red belt anymore, and what is there to do, you know? So, I mean, her main goal was to build up everyone. She's not the main trainer anymore. She can't do that. There's nothing for her to stay in Stardom for anymore. So it makes sense for her to leave. But the Hazuki one, that's the most confusing. Because based on everything, the only thing that makes sense, the only thing that gives a clear picture is the fact that she lost interest in the company after Kagetsu lost power. Because her saying that she's being mishandled, her saying that she doesn't want to retire, it falls in line with the mentality that I was in power, but now I'm not. The company's bad. You know, that's the only thing that can make sense to me. So, final thought process here. In terms of who I think is in the right and in the wrong. Ooh. I think right now, Stardom and Kagetsu being, like, tied. I don't fully trust Stardom, but I don't fully trust Kagetsu either. Just based on everything that's being said. Kagetsu is trying... I don't want to say trying too hard, but... Where did it go? Didn't I? Oh. I feel like she's doing the typical Japanese business thing. Like she's trying to go out on a good note, which is good. But that doesn't always necessarily mean that things are fine. And of course, if you were this abusive trainer that everyone turned on, is that what you're going to say in your blog post? No. You're going to make it sound like she had a good time and she's happy, that things went well for most part. She achieved her goals in Stardom. I don't know. I feel like this is much harder to pick a side than the Julia Ice Ribbon Stardom thing, because with that one, at least we were getting like multiple information from each side. This one, we have one information from Stardom side, and then multiple things from Hazuki. And as you guys know, in any instance, when someone seems like they're trying too hard to be a victim, I tend to get suspicious, and that's what I feel like for Hazuki. I don't think that she's in the right here. I think she's probably the least trustworthy one out of all three of them. Because if you look at all like media stories, blah, 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 who's the most upset about losing power? Is it the person who's in power, or is it the person who's in power's second-hand person who is abusing that power without having to be on top? It's always the second person. They're the person that's always abuses it more, because they have that connection, but they didn't work for that connection. They're just friends or related to the person in power. And I feel like Hazuki, and the way that she reacts, and the way that like she kind of just stopped caring over the last year in terms of like everything besides the wrestling part. She always put her heart in those matches. Don't get me wrong, she always performed, but everything else she just kind of stopped caring for the most part. And I could see her just being upset that she's no longer has this power over everyone. I feel like that really fits in with what we've seen of her. But Kagetsu, we've seen I made a whole video about how I thought she was a super sweet, nice person who cared about a lot of people. I still feel that way. But just because someone's sweet and nice and caring, it doesn't mean they can't be abusive too. I hope we get some more information about this, but I doubt we will. The only thing that I could say what's good about this is that we're most likely going to be getting more news from Meltzer about Stardom, because with Bushiroad taking over, they'll want someone to kind of feed information through when things like this happens. So we'll at least finally get Stardom side in a roundabout way in anything that happens from here on out. I don't know. What do you guys think? Who do you guys think is in the right? Who do you guys think is wrong? Because I've been seeing so much stuff about how like Stardom are these like super evil company, and they're forcing Hazuki and Kagetsu to retire and blah 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 blah. It doesn't even make sense. They can't force you to retire. Sure, they can make you wait out your contract if you have a contract, but it sounded like Bushiroad was remaking everyone's contract. If anything, they probably just didn't like what Bushiroad offered them. Hazuki's retirement may have been due to more difficult times than pleasant ones. I don't understand that. Because we have instances of people vouching for Kagetsu. Like, now. But then again, that's Odo Tai. So, like, it's kind of painting this picture that people in Odo Tai kind of got special treatment from Kagetsu, whereas the other teams kind of got left in the dust. Because most of the people who are like kind of backing up Kagetsu and Hazuki right now are Odo Tai people. And the one person who is saying something, you know, good about them who isn't Odo Tai is a foreigner. I just feel like there's too many things making or pointing to this being the most trustworthy account than Hazuki's, with Kagetsu being right there too. Because she's really not saying anything against Stardom here, other than she's just... she thinks it'll be good under Iwatani's reign. Alright, well, that's the end of this unscripted topic. I have to get ready for work. So what do you guys think? Who do you guys think is in the right? Who do you guys think is in the wrong? Do you believe this story? Do you not? Just let me know in the comments. All right.